Good afternoon, everybody. And football is on the way when season three of Hard Knocks with AB and Jeff is back. I wish I had the theme music queued up, but maybe next month, maybe next episode I'll have it going on. But how's it going, Jeff?
Great, man. We just kind of spoke before the show. It's time. It's in the air. It's football season, and it's time to overthink things, make predictions. Hard Knocks kicks off. We get to do this. It's just that time of year. I've really been enjoying baseball season, but there is just something unique about, especially early season football. There's something unique just about preseason, the practices. Like, this is when everybody's installing, offenses and defenses and finding out who, like, I'm a Ohio State fan. We don't know who our quarterback is yet. Yet we're ranked in the top 5 in the country. Like, all this wild stuff going on right now around me. So it's pretty cool, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. In Texas, football is just that's basically 365 every year.
Yeah.
But we both come from football states. But now we're going to be talking about a big. We're going to be talking about the Jets this year, which I was thinking we almost didn't have Hard Knocks until the Jets said, "Oh, we'll do it. We'll limit it. We'll limit our what you see." But I was like, "Ooh, will this be a good Hard Knocks?"
Yeah, I've got some strong thoughts on that. Immediately, you can tell that there were certain conditions to get them on Hard Knocks, which I'm glad they did it. I'm glad we have the show, but it is definitely a lot fluffier than your typical year of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, the word I put on my paper is there's a lot of spectacles in this episode. A lot of guest appearances from a lot of well-known people.
Yeah,
but let's get into the beginning of the show where Coach Sala gave a speech about the crow and the eagle.
What what are we? But last year we loved our guy. Detroit Lions, all their coaches and everything. We kind of fell in love with Dan and Aaron and all those guys. I don't know. This was the most forced speech that made no sense of anything I can think of. Because here's the thing, and this was one of my notes: the Jets are not these huge underdogs. They weren't a terrible team last year. Like, he's given a speech as this whole contrived, like, blah, 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 nobody believes in you and all this stuff. I'm like, no, you went and got a Hall of Fame quarterback with a roster that pushed for the playoffs last year. That means you're a good team in the NFL. Like, you're not you're not a Cinderella team. I don't know where he was going with it. It made no sense.
Yeah, you know what? I because it made no sense to me, but the one thing I did, because he looks like Vin Diesel, so I just imagine him, Vin Diesel, doing the speech, so it made me laugh inside.
He should lean into the Vin Diesel and just be like, if he should have came, he could have won Hard Knocks. He should have came out and said, the season's all about family, and everybody would have rolled. And I don't know. I didn't know much about him. I remember his time with the 49ers and all the rah stuff, which is cool. Like, I don't particularly think that the rah coaches work, but Dan Campbell's proven me wrong. He's got a contender in Detroit. And I said this year, I didn't think Dan Campbell would be coaching Detroit. Wrong about that. Sala, I think Sala's a good coach, but like, some of the over the top stuff, just it's hard for me not to roll my eyes at it. But hey, it's their coach, not mine. So whatever gets them to where they need to be. But yeah, he kind of feels like one of those. Yeah, he still feels like a strength and conditioning coach more than he does a head coach. But that doesn't mean it won't work.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're kind of looking for a coach, and now they want, like you said, a strength and conditioning type of looking.
Yeah, he's like created on Madden. Like, he's just the coach you could select, this type of coach on Madden, and they created this dude. I mean, he's got the look. I mean, he obviously takes care of himself. Perfectly shaved head. Like, he's got all the words. Like, he's everything. The energy. I can see why, if you're a fan of the Jets, you would like him. But as an outsider, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's some out of the Shanahan coaching tree. They got some interesting personalities out of that group.
That's a good point too. Yeah. That was another thing. Speaking of the coaches, like, usually they kind of give us Hard Knocks usually gives us like 2 or 3 of the coaches.
Yeah.
Last year was great with the coaches, Deuce and Aaron Glenn and those guys. Like they really let us dig into the assistants.
Yeah.
They didn't really give us one. They kind of they showed us a lot of Hackett, but I'm sure we'll talk about Rodgers. I mean, that was really all just the Hackett Rodgers thing. It was a really weird the way they ran that story. But again, I didn't come away like with these coaches being like, "Oh man, that's the guy." Like that's he's different. This is I just didn't. I didn't come away with falling in love with these coaches yet.
Yeah, I think episode 2, I think we're gonna hopefully get more into the coaches. It was kind of like
it's less Aaron Rodgers and more anything else.
Yeah, I had to try to find the right words to put on my notes because I was I had to keep it PG-13 with it.
Yeah.
So I had to think about it. I just said he's basically was the cool kid in school when they put it on Aaron Rodgers, like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it was weird, man. And then obviously the majority of the first episode was they focused on Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Like that was really the entire episode. And then Aaron, with Hackett and all that. And it was, to me, it felt like a PR stunt more than anything of like, let's try to manufacture a new, narrative around Rodgers and show him as a different person. Was it just me? I know he's from California. He played for Green Bay for 20 years. Like, was he faking like some kind of Southern accent, or is that how Aaron Rodgers really? I didn't recognize Aaron Rodgers' accent.
Yeah, it was like a blend of like 3 accents. I didn't really hear a California accent at all.
It sounded very, and I'm, full disclosure, I notoriously think that Aaron Rodgers is just completely full of it. Everything he says is calculated. I don't believe a word he says. I do think he's, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I don't necessarily think he's one of the best quarterbacks still in the NFL. So I should just lay that out there for everybody listening, is like, I don't really fall for any of the hype and all that surrounding it. And, they talked about, what an improvement. Well, of course, Rodgers came in there and replaced Zach Wilson, who had really not done very well. So yes, he is a lot better in practice than Zach Wilson's going to be.
Yeah, of course. You see in practice, yeah, he's going to make those darts. Like he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks.
Right. I mean, all those things are, but then then they got into the stuff. They're almost acting like the Jets are like guaranteed Super Bowl contenders. I'm like, well, you haven't, fared that well for quite a few seasons. Rodgers didn't make the playoffs last year. So I think they're putting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit on just how good this team is.
Yeah. We messaged yesterday. We were talking about, they really reeling it in. Like this team is like this Super Bowl contending team, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And because you've seen all these celebrities coming out and everything, and like, yeah, Method Man, yeah, Nick Van Exel with Sauce Gardner. I actually like that one.
Okay, so that is another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. I thought Sauce came off great. I just seeing him and physically like comparing him, like I'm all in on Sauce Gardner. Like I know I got to watch him a little bit last year. I watched him a lot when he played at Cincinnati. Just here in Ohio, they were just kind of on a lot. And I really like the kid. But like last night, I thought he came off like a pro. I thought he looked like his build and everything is the prototype cornerback that you want in today's game. So I thought Sauce Gardner, like I came away like, okay, this guy's legit. Like I buy into all the hype now. I love seeing Nick Van Exel. I won't lie. I love that. He was
the same here.
He was really one of my favorite players when I was young. He was, it's exciting. Nick the Quick. I was I still followed the Lakers, like coming off of the 80s run, when I was really a Lakers fan. And it was nice to see Nick and all that. Method, it's always great to see Method, man. Come on. I mean, I love that. And then so I thought it was cool. What'd you think about having the voice of Hard Knocks, Liev Schreiber, on the field? What?
I actually like that one. I don't know what to expect when the helicopter came out. Like, I don't know what's this, because I was looking, was Aaron Rodgers there? He was on the field. I'm like, okay, it's not him. And then comes out Liev Schreiber, the voice of God, what basically Aaron Rodgers is saying when he came.
And then again, that was like Rodgers got a little over the top about that. Like, come on, like you knew he was coming. This is what I'm saying. It felt like more of an MTV reality show to where they kind of, I won't say scripted, but they knew where it was going to steer. But it was
Yeah.
cool to see Liebschreiber. I like him from most of his stuff. I like him from Ray Donovan a lot. And it's funny enough, 3 times in my life, I've had complete strangers tell me I look just like Liebschreiber, which I don't like. There's versions of us, that do, because he's only a few years older than me. We're pretty close. So one time Santa Claus called me told he was giving out presents. He said, "Look, everybody, Ray Donovan's over here." Anyway, then I had a guy at an airport one time. We're sitting at the airport in Las Vegas, and you kind of feel somebody staring at you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like doing whatever, waiting on the plane, and I can just tell. And finally, this guy leans over and he's like, "Man, I'm not trying to be rude." He goes, "You guys know who like you're sitting with?" And everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, and he tells like he couldn't stop, like, he couldn't believe it. It's so funny. So it's always funny when Schreiber's on there, and I'm like, yeah, we're both just kind of white dudes. You know what I mean? Like that's really, that's really the common thing here. It's not, we're not thinking outside of the box, but that was cool to see him. I thought that was that for him to get some airtime on the show after all these years of doing it was actually really, that was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and when you hear him talk, you could hear a little bit of it, but he really works on that change of voice.
Yeah, he does a great job on the show too. So I thought that was a neat touch, but it was just weird. That was another thing. It's like we just didn't get to see football. Like I'm ready to see, like I want to see the football, like competing, not slow motion Aaron Rodgers passes. Like, yeah, they're like, of course there's going to be a bunch of good, I guess they did give us the one. I think he's a rookie linebacker that they were kind of going crazy over.
Chaz Surratt.
Yeah.
Freaking solid.
Yeah.
I just love this guy.
Yeah, I just
what a great guy.
Yeah, that was, I don't know. I guess maybe I just maybe it's as genuine as can be, and it's just not me. I enjoyed the show. I don't gravitate. Plus, I've been a Dolphins fan my whole life, so obviously the New York Jets, it's going to take a lot for me to be like, yeah, they're cool. I mean, I've literally disdained them for 40 years. So of course it's going to be hard to turn me.
Yeah, I understand that. Like if we were talking about the Eagles, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I just love
precisely
this."
Like, oh yeah, these guys are so cool.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't think it was a bad first episode. I didn't think it was a bad first episode.
Yeah, it was a good episode. My favorite part was the friendly competition with Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. That was actually that was the best part of that whole thing.
Those two are both legit. Those are two very good football players.
Yeah, I know you know a lot about Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I've watched probably about every snap he took at Ohio State, and like I said, Gardner, I got to watch him a lot too, just from being around. So yeah, very impressed with both those. I mean, they're really pinning this franchise on Wilson. I mean, Rodgers is going to be there for maybe a year, maybe two, but I mean, Wilson's him and those two. I mean, that's the face of the franchise.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else they had appeared. I know they did like a little quick deal with the defensive line, talking about going to a play and everything, but that was
what was his name? A lot with Solomon
Thomas. He played at Stanford. I remember him.
Yes, Solomon Thomas. Yeah, that was cool. I like to see those guys, and they do have a really good depth at defensive line, and that's the thing about this. I will say this: so the other side of this is the Jets are a very talented team. So we don't get to see that on Hard Knocks a lot anymore because of all the rules of who gets picked. I don't want to say that they don't pick bad teams, but they don't pick good teams.
Yeah.
I believe you can't even be on if you went to the playoffs the year before, can you? I think there's
it's a dumb rule.
Yeah, so typically you're getting kind of the lower level team. So this is pretty cool to have. We haven't seen probably a all-pro quarterback like this one there for a while just because of that. Typically you're getting a young guy or somebody that's like Dak Prescott was a big one a couple years ago, which was cool. But he wasn't Aaron Rodgers level at this point, it is neat to see. It's going to be neat to see if they really give us some inside info. I really don't think they're going to, because I don't know what the Jets would have to advantage by giving away anything that happens in training camp, as to where Detroit, was trying to put themselves on the map. And Cowboys a couple years ago, they just love any attention, which is fine. I'm not even against it. I thought actually Cowboys had one of the best we've ever seen. They actually, I thought the Cowboys 2 years ago let us in deeper and showed us more things than just about any team ever has. I mean, you know, we were in Jerry Jones' office. We were in Dak Prescott's house. Like, they really let us, you know, get in as to where I think this is all going to be in. I'll doubt that anything negative happens around Aaron Rodgers. That's just my guess.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen in a game or something. I mean, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be stuff like that. But somehow I don't think that there's going to be any negativity around Rodgers in this show.
I don't think so either. You think we get a look at Aaron Rodgers' house or anything like that? Because I don't feel like we're going to get that.
See, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see him with. I don't know his status, wife, girlfriend, or whatever. I don't think he's married.
I think he said single in the show.
So yeah, but I don't feel like we're going to get to see any of that, anything that he doesn't want you to see. So if I guess I'm curious, because there's no way, because this will go like another, basically this gonna be 4 more weeks till it ends. Mm-hmm. I am curious, because he's going to do something stupid in those 4 weeks. Like, he just is. That's who he is. He's going to say something, do something. I'm curious to see how that's handled in the show. I don't know. I imagine they're going to ignore it, but we'll see.
Yeah, they'll probably cut it. No, I'll give Hard Knocks. They're really good at editing, so we only get like a little tidbit. Yeah. So it doesn't come out like he's probably just yelling at a teammate for messing up on a play. But in reality, it's probably something petty that he got mad at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but again, I'm gonna watch it and thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, any insight that we can get. Who knows? They may, because I know this year they're not going to show any cuts. They're not showing cuts on Hard Knocks this year, the rookies or any of the guys. So I know we're not going to get to see that. Which has always been a big part of it. I never really liked that, but it did give you the realism of how, the stakes that these guys play under and what they're trying for. I would imagine next week, because they'll have a pregame, or a preseason game. So I would imagine that, we're going to they'll start attaching us to like some of these guys trying to make the roster and stuff, because they're only going to, they only got 3. Well, I guess they have the Hall of Fame, so they're going to have 4 preseason games. So yeah, we'll get a little extra action out of this. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I hope we get some UDFA guys on there, because that's the underdog guys that try to make the team.
Yeah.
I know they're not, like you said, they're not going to show the guys are getting cut. And you don't want to see that happen, but then you're like, that's a part of Hard Knocks. That's part of
it. It always has been, yeah. And you root for these guys, and the ones that don't get cut's pretty awesome too. I mean, it's all part of it. So I would imagine this week they'll attach us to some players that maybe had a good Hall of Fame game. You know what I mean? And they'll start gripping onto them and follow. I would imagine we'll get to see a lot of behind the scenes with Garrett Wilson. Feels like him and Sauce are going to get their due, and we'll get to meet their families and things like that. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I want to see more Sauce than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers could get a little bit, but
yeah,
this whole episode was either
it was a bit Rodgers heavy. We could move on from. They could honestly not really even show him, and I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get any plans on like
Wilson's. Am I wrong? Is Wilson's a Texas guy, isn't he?
Oh no, he's from Utah. I know you're talking. Oh, you talking about Garrett Wilson or Zach?
Yeah,
Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
Oh yeah, he's from Austin.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought he was. Ohio State loves those Texas kids. I love them. Yeah. They're very successful for us. We're big fans. I thought he was Texas.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh yeah, the Zach Wilson stuff. What'd you think of that? That was kind of a neat little segment.
Yeah, it was. Get to see a little bit with what Zach Wilson is. I really didn't know much about him. I know I got to see a little bit of BYU, but you didn't get to know what type of personality he is. Yeah, it's like. That school is a little. I'm going to say different and everything, just in case.
Right. No, you're 100%. Just the way they run things, and that was a weird year. His big year was the quote unquote COVID year. Yeah. So like things were they were kind of playing by themselves, like in this, like almost in a different world that season, as opposed to like Ohio State had that was a weird year that those guys came out. So. Wilson got a lot of like pub because of how good they played, and also they were actually playing, but also we didn't get to see him against really any competition and so on and so forth. They had that huge game against Coastal Carolina, was it?
Yeah, it was Coastal Carolina.
That was the big deal that year. So I'm not rooting against. if it goes great for the kid, it's awesome. I don't have high hopes just based on talent and all those. I never really did, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other guys on the team. We like we were saying, we didn't really get idea of any players.
Not
Oh,
really.
I did write this down. How many F bombs do you think the defensive coordinator said in
Oh
that
my
first?
goodness. Now,
He
I
forced
came away kind of liking that guy. I
I
didn't know
did.
much about him. But he seems like he seemed like a coach that was bothered to like have to do this show.
Yeah, you
And he
could say,
seems like a guy that probably doesn't like, I think he seems like he's in his own world. Like I was like, this guy does not feel like he was hired by Saul or whatever. And maybe Saul is just playing like, a different role than he actually is, so. But yeah, defense coordinator. I came away thinking like, yeah, it's pretty cool. That's a classic coach. He seemed like but the hat backwards, but like
oh
way backwards. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like way backwards, stuff like that. So
yeah,
yeah, seemed
yeah.
like a decent guy.
He seemed like the most realistic one on there out of
Yes,
him and what was the other that defensive back coach. Like they're just honest shooters that like they probably just told them, okay, y'all could be here, but them cameras got to be way back
that's
there.
what I totally agree. Then that's what I want to see more of. So I hope next week we get more of those two. Hackett, I have whatever's going on. I know he's there because of Rodgers and all that. I saw how bad last year was and all the stuff with, what Peyton said. But man, that's just a guy that I just don't need much from. I don't. There's just it's like I say, it's all fluff, but his
Yeah,
offense really hasn't showed me that he deserves it. He's not Eric Bieniemy, so
nah,
I was like, it's just whatever he said didn't hold a lot of weight with me, put it that way.
nah.
But yeah, the defensive side, like I could do with more of that.
Yeah, like more of that. It's just like Nathaniel Hackett was just very eccentric. I didn't know what to describe him. He was just random.
Yeah, and Rodgers played right into it. Like, oh yeah, this so cool. And I'm like, yeah, but also what I want to say is like, yeah, but you guys didn't win anything. Like also
Yeah,
at the same time, like, yeah, you do like you're having a super, super fun time.
yeah,
You're here to win football games. Like, we'll see. I mean, we're going to know. That's a good thing about sports. Like, we're going to find out.
that's true. Oh, you remember when they were playing that game and they brought up they threw a slug at Sean Payton. I forgot
Oh,
what game.
yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. See, that was unnecessary,
It
in my opinion. Like, but that's classic Rodgers, like, always thinking about that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I know it seems like little things, but I'm like, I need my guy to be like focused on, like, I know you can do both. I know I'm talking about both sides of my face, but that just seemed unnecessary. Like Sean Payton's kind of proved himself.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah. And it just several great seasons and,
Yeah, he basically turned a laughing stock franchise into a top team.
yeah, for over a decade.
Yeah, like you can take it back when some people used to call them the New Orleans Aints or
Yeah.
like you can't really say too much about Peyton. And people really shouldn't be shocked what Sean Payton says. He's gonna say what's on his mind and he's gonna move on. He's a Bill Parcells guy, so what do you
Yeah. Now Peyton's a guy that I just that's a guy I lean a little more towards. Like, so I'm automatically going to be like, taking Peyton's side, so to speak, even though there's not a side to take. But I guess it's also fun. It's something to watch. But and again, everything felt forced. Like it didn't feel like natural. Like there was no reason to do that.
It just seemed like it was a lot of acting and everything.
Yes,
it wasn't real.
Rodgers really felt like he was on stage the whole time. But I think he really thinks people buy this. He really feels that like, oh yeah, they're loving me. They're loving me right now. But yeah, we really don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but interesting personality.
And we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
Yeah. By next episode, we'll get the true side of Aaron Rodgers that we know and love.
I would think, yeah, because he's actually going to play this week. I would hope he's gonna have to take some snaps.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I'm looking at my notes, but yeah, that's all I have. But I know we're going to talk a little bit about some Big Ten. So
yeah, let's do it before we get out of here.
we got some West Coast teams coming to the Big Ten. I want
Things
to
are
get your
getting
thoughts.
wild, man. So first of all, like full disclosure, I'm not a Big Ten guy. Ohio State is my team, but I don't love the conference. But I do live in Big Ten country, so like a lot of people naturally like I wouldn't you would never hear me refer to Big Ten as like we. That's what I'm just so everybody knows that because it's basically Ohio State versus everybody else. But it's wild, man. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much as it does some people, and I understand why it does bother some people as far as because I mean this just kind of just like tears up the book and is going to just rewrite it for the future of college football starting, when all this happens. What I don't like, it needs to be, and I know we're going this way, it needs to be football only conferences, these giant SEC, because they play once a week. They got all the money. It all makes more sense. How are you possibly going to have, softball and baseball teams, swimming teams and stuff competing, from Washington and California, competing on the East Coast? I mean, Maryland and Rutgers are on the East Coast, which that was even weird when they went to the Big Ten, but now it's even just off the charts. But I mean, what we're building up to is these super conferences. And, the fact is, and I've, I'm not like I came up with it, but I've always said like this is what we were going towards. You're going to have a huge one, the SEC, like the ACC is kind of done again too. It sounds like they're going to be cooked again. They're in deep trouble, with teams leaving. And you're going to wind up with these big super conferences, and everybody's doesn't quite make the cut. I don't know if they're going to have to come up with other league. I don't know what they're not going to be able to compete for a college national championship anymore. Basically the bottom half of these big conferences are just, I mean, the Pac-12's done. The big 4 teams. It's like, even though I saw it was coming, and I know that in 10 years what the product's going to look like, it is kind of a mess right now. I mean, I'm lucky Ohio State doesn't have to worry about it. They got the money and the resources. Whatever goes on, they're gonna be fine. Yeah, so selfishly, but like if you're like a Vanderbilt, even like the mid tier teams, like we'll say an Iowa State, that scratch TCU might even get left behind. Like some of these schools that fight every few years, for those spots, like they're probably going to start getting left behind and getting eliminated. And you're just going to have basically probably wind up being about the 32 biggest programs in the country. And that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah. You can say goodbye to rival games and everything, because that's the day of the past.
Yeah. There's going to be so many teams now. You're not going to play the same teams every year. I mean, they're going to they said they're going to, lock in some of the rivalries like Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, stuff like that. But like, for how long? I mean, how long is that going to last? I mean, or pretty soon we're going to have maybe 4 conferences, I guess, by the time it's all said and done, because the SEC is doing the same thing. I mean, they're going to keep growing. I would imagine Florida State's going to wind up in the SEC. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of feels like a natural progression of things. And it's happening soon.
Yeah, it really is. And one of the things you notice about, like you're saying, the Big Ten, they have Rutgers and Maryland. Yeah. SEC has Vanderbilt and Missouri. I don't know how Missouri got in the.
Yeah, Missouri's. Yeah. Well, just think about it next year. We're going to go to the next football season. USC is going to be in the Big Ten, and Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in the SEC. Like that. How weird does that sound?
It really is. And when you think of the Big Ten, you got these teams that are in the Midwest and East in the Eastern time zone. Then you got the West Coast; they're 2 hours behind. So it doesn't be all this. And these kids are
they're 3 behind probably half of the Big Ten teams.
That's true. It's just I don't think they thought about the student. They were just talking about.
That's nothing.
It's all of this money.
It's just money. It's TV money. The TV money rules everything. Whatever these cable companies that give, because see, now you've got NBC is in, showing, Big Ten games this year, which is a huge thing, not just Notre Dame. CBS is starting to show Big Ten games. So now like all this money's pouring in that was already pouring in. And so, of course, these teams are like, sure, we'll take it. I mean, the revenue sharing's off the charts, and it's fine for football. It'll work. And I kind of do like some of it too, because like I don't know how it's going to weed out, but I don't mind the schedule being Oregon, USC, plus your Penn States and all that. Like that's a cool thing. But I feel terrible for, like, I don't know if you're volleyball, soccer. I don't know. They've got to separate football and put everything back the way it was. Because what's the sense in even calling it? I mean, the Big Ten, when there's we're up to 18 now. I think we saw like SEC, they're up to, they're at least 14 and then probably more. I mean, whoever else skips. I mean, then they're talking about what, Stanford and Cal, what are they going to do? It sounds like Stanford could really get hit by this just by circumstances. That could be a program that's traditionally been pretty good, and some years very good, to irrelevant possibly if they're not forced into making a crazy move.
Yeah, they have to go to some conference, and then just thinking about it, like those West Coast teams, they got beach volleyball and those type of sports. So is Penn State and Ohio State gonna have a beach volleyball?
Yeah, the athletic. Well, and here's the problem: they could have got ahead of this years ago by setting things up, putting people in charge of the NCAA, coming up, and they refused to do any of that. And then the floodgates open with the transfer portal, then the NIL, and then nobody's overseeing the whole thing. Because again, there's still not one person that oversees every conference. Each conference has its own, directors and stuff, but there's not one that oversees them all, so they can do whatever they want. There is no governing body over, the NCAA.
Yeah, it's just free range where anybody could just do anything.
Yeah, and it's for the teams on top, they're just going to get richer, but a lot of teams are going to become irrelevant, and especially even with the players, because now you have 20 teams in this conference and whatever it's going to be, 14, 15, 16 the other. Like, that's your recruiting conferences. So now, like, all the players are going to go to those teams. There would be no reason to go to a school outside of one of these major conferences if you're a player that wants to get to the NFL, if that's your goal. I mean, what reason would you have for going to one of the the other 5 schools, or even what's left of some of the smaller conference, ACC or whatever? There'd be no upside to that.
Yeah,
if you're a 4-star, you're going to one of these 2 giant conferences.
Yeah, and just think about it, like schools like the Mountain West and the Conference USA, those used to be like fun conferences to watch, but now they're going to get picked apart.
Yeah, they're going to get. Yeah, they're just going to be at a different level. I mean, it's
one AA compared to everybody else.
Yeah, that's a comparison. If anybody remembers when it was 1A and 1 AA, that's what I keep thinking is like pretty much that's just what it's going to have to be. I would imagine you're going to have a major national champion, and then you're going to have like the other 100 teams play for like an NCAA national champion. I would say that's what we're going towards.
Yeah, it really wasn't thought out. They just were picking part. Let me get the best teams.
It's just money.
Yeah, it's
all money. Think about that. Think about how much money USC is worth to a conference. Like, of course, the Big Ten is going to sign them. Like that's. I mean, you're talking the LA market. You're talking the LA market watching Ohio State games. Like the number of people it's just astronomical what it brings in television viewers. Of course, they're going to want them. I mean, why wouldn't it?
Yeah, and just the style when it comes to football, that's the style of football they play the West Coast to the Midwest. I'm like, they're going to be in a rude awakening playing against Ohio State.
We'll see, man. I don't know.
It's going to be fun, though.
I think some of these schools that think, like, I would say like a team like Michigan State or somebody kind of Wisconsin, Iowa kind of counseling some of that stuff. I think they might be like, whoa, we're not used to playing USC in the middle of the season. Like, schools just don't do that.
Yeah, they usually play that if they're like playing in the Rose Bowl or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's like random bowls. They're going to have to
go out to LA, in November or Oregon. Goodness sakes, go to Autzen Stadium, and I mean, so in October, like that place is rocking. Like it's a different ball game.
Yeah, we'll know about it definitely next year, because they're still going to be moving teams around now. Yeah, there's going to be some surprise, like, oh, this team is going here.
It's so weird. Just like I say, this season is just like the farewell tour of college football, and then next year everything we knew about it's different. So it's, for a college football fan, it's I know I can't stop the evolution of it, so I'm just going to watch it and see how it goes and try to enjoy it and hope and just hope it eventually turns out, and hope that they don't make too many changes for their own good and then start regressing. That's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see the Alabamas and Georgias and Ohio States and Michigans and all these schools. I don't want to see them regress into like, okay, nobody cares anymore. You're just an NFL farm team. I don't want it to become that either. Little like we've seen with college basketball. I mean, college basketball, as far as the fame and the popularity of it, isn't what it was in the 90s. It's taken a step back to the NBA. So I'd hate to see that happen just because I love the sport so much.
Yeah, and then when you talk about basketball, a lot of these guys are going to the G League Unite or overseas. So
to me, we don't have time to talk about it tonight, but to me, this was the year. This NBA draft told me that college basketball is in deep trouble.
It is.
That was my thoughts after watching the NBA draft this year.
Yeah, man. Just to end on a good note, a little bit. I know my Longhorns are going to the SEC, but we get to play against A&M again. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, I didn't realize it had been a while. Plus, you got Alabama. What's the Alabama game? First or second?
First game.
Ooh,
this will be a fun game.
My goodness, they had them last year. They had them.
It was.
I can't even talk about. I know. We all saw the play. It was a sack. It was a safety. It doesn't matter. It was that game and yours and like. But woulda, shoulda, coulda. Yeah. You're talking to a guy that was heartbroken over. Like, you ain't got to tell me anything about heartbreak.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But I'm definitely going to be back on Thursday. Not Thursday, Wednesday, back with Hard Knocks for the next episode.
Sweet.
But, yes, sir. So, but this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. My mic was acting up a little. I mean, not my mic, my mouse is acting up. But this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one. Peace.